Thanks again for having me. And yeah, my name is Martin Duda, from solution consultant from OpenText. I'm here today to help you and outline a little bit about the best practices of ECM, which we have seen them. So I will go over different aspects of customer installations and custom implementations, which we have followed to guide you as well of what's the newest and the most recommended ways of working digitally these days. So let me go ahead. Disclaimer. As all know, we are in the industry 4.0 at the moment. So there are a lot of changes going on worldwide. And just to highlight and put it in perspective, is basically that there's a huge amount of information which will be created. Some incredible numbers out there, estimated 40 zettabytes of data. That's 4 times more stars than available on the sky. And 90% of all that information is just created in the last 2 years and will probably even grow more and more. So that's just to highlight how important it is to manage information which is ever growing these days. And why this is the case is there are different trends and technologies which have affected this and made it easier to create information. So there's obviously the cloud, which increases the speed and the innovation. There's an AI insights so that you can use now the data more efficiently to get more out of it than just what you see with your bare eyes if you're looking at any of your data records, for example. Then you have a bit smaller here. Then you have 5G, which should increase the exchange of data between people, but also machines, much more. Then you have the digital disruption, which obviously we have seen all along. Then there's a new workforce which are expecting a different way of working with information. It should be on their fingertips, what they are used to when they grow up with their smartphones on their hands. The machines getting more intelligent. Everything is digital. Even cigarettes are digital and need to be loaded, and so everything has an API and created some data and wants to exchange information with other machines. The way we are experiencing data has changed. There's so much more UIs and ways of consuming data. So that increases, will increase over time as well. And then on the other hand, there's the privacy, as seen recently developments by Apple to protect, for example, how information we are using on our mobile phones are shared or shouldn't be shared, or we should be aware of what is tracked by some of the big companies. So all these make up a huge challenge for all the business these days, which have to be considered going forward. Yes, and then came COVID-19. So even then, the last company who wasn't aware that digitalization is important, I think, woke up at that time. So as we have all experienced, and probably our experience still is that that changed a lot, and it make it even more apparent that obviously working from home is very important to keep safe. But that means you have to have a centralized environment. You can't rely on paper. You have to collaborate differently. You have probably adjust your way of selling products, and the demand will be different. There might be different regulations as well. So that has a huge impact on how we have all worked going forward. So therefore, an organization, not only because of COVID, but in general, should be resilient. So a company has to be able to adjust quickly to change, be it digital change or being it impacted by a pandemic like we have seen or in right now. So you have to be able to respond to whatever change is coming and be able to manage the continuity. You have to recover from any change and learn from it, and hopefully emerge stronger as well with the learnings you have created. And then you have to go back to a new kind of normal and use that information and what you have adjusted over time. So that's what we have come up as a guidelines of how a resilient organization should look like. Just an example of one of our customers in North America, Stericycle. They have been digital very well. They're using OpenText solution in this case, and we're going away already from paper quite a lot. So because they are doing waste disposal for hospitals and other medical institutions, I mean, they had a lot of things on their hand. They had to follow new guidelines, new demands, obviously, but they were able to cope because they had everything digital, a centralized system. So they're doing good. Just as an example of obviously one of our customers are affected here as well with the pandemic. So with all that information, which is now coming into companies and needs to be processed, needs to be looked at, there's also a huge opportunity coming with it. I mean, if you have a nice setup of your information and use this together with your vendors and your customers, then you can grow and grow much more than your competition. And have better productivity going forward. So yes, it can look overwhelming, but it can also be a really good way of improving business going forward. So just maybe a step back of how did we come here. There are different terms and abbreviations in the market, and I just want to share a minute about how this landscape of ECM has evolved. So we all started or heard document management system, but that's how the solutions grew over time, and that at the time was the focus to manage purely a document better than you do on a file system, so that you have very basic concepts of check-in and check-out, for example, and adding attributes or full text search to a document. That's how it all started. Then it evolved into something called enterprise content management. So there were more functionality and needs around managing documents. It was not just about storing a document, maybe attaching some information, but also using it as part of a workflow, for example, or connecting it to some other application. So doing much more with it. So the term was expanded to enterprise content management. But if you look at Gartner or Forrester's these days to look what is their recommendation, for example, you don't find that acronym anymore. They moved on to a new term, which is called content services. So that's even a broader term from ECM. So really using the information you are collecting and managing not only inside the organization or inside the department, but really across all departments, and also with external parties, for example, with different applications, with other processes and services as well. But that's why it's broadened the term to content services. This presentation I will use both terms as we go along, but just that you have an idea where we are in a moment, and I guess it will be exciting what will come next afterwards. So content services. So as you can see here in the middle, we have maybe the classic DMS, but there's more around it. And I just want to highlight certain aspects which we will see going on as well. So what you should look out for is that there are certain horizontal solutions available, for example, for the back office. So it's important to start not from developing something, but there's something out there already to manage certain back office functionalities, for example, like sharing. Then there are certain industry solutions available as well. So that, for example, for engineering, for HR, for legal, that you have pre-configured environments which help you for specific needs of managing these particular documents. Then there's another aspect, which is the document generation. So you're managing documents, but how are they created? Are they based on templates? How sophisticated are these templates to make sure that you have a consistent way of creating them and follow certain internal standards? So creating documents is also becoming a more important part as well of managing documents. Then the cloud should be considered as well. Where would you like to manage the content services, on-prem, in the cloud, or something in between? Then we have records management, which is becoming an important part. So if you are managing documents, you would like also to manage the life cycle of it. And I will cover this in the end, and I think there's another session afterwards as well, giving even more information about that topic. Then we have archiving. So archiving is not a standalone functionality anymore. It's part of an ECM system, so that you are able to manage where actually the documents are stored, so that you have the possibility to easily move from one storage to another. So very commonly to see is that the storage media have evolved. We started with CDs, with a warm jukebox, with using DVDs, and now obviously with storage like in NetApp or Centera. And the last new developments are the cloud storage. So if you are maintaining documents for several years, then you want to have an easy way of moving this to either new technology, or maybe using it to be sure that you are using the most efficient storage as well. You might want to have a very quick but maybe more expensive storage at the beginning, where a lot of users accessing the documents, but then maybe after 10 years or so, when the documents are only occasionally be accessed, then you're fine with putting the documents onto a tape storage, for example, which takes a little bit longer to be retrieved. But if it's just only internally and maybe every other blue moon, then you are not so worried, but you save much more on the storage media. So this one should be part of a solution as well, and it's normally in the background so that the end user is not affected by retrieving the documents. It's really just something done in the back office, which are controlling where documents should be moved. Then you have search and analytics capabilities, so that the users are able to search for documents either based on metadata, based on information inside the document itself, or you might want to use the system also for e-discovery sessions. So if there's something going on which you have to investigate internally, that the system provides such an information as well. Then there are different ways of capturing information. So how do you make sure that you are getting the documents into the system? There are different ways which should be supported there as well, to give you all the freedom independent from the source of where the document is originated. So if you upload something from your personal desktop, if it comes from another application as a mass output, if it's scanned by a document or uploaded by another person via a mobile phone, there are various ways of capturing which a solution should be supporting, especially going forward, where more documents will be created from a digital environment. Then we have the intelligent automation. So there should be ways that the system actually helps you to do something automatically based on certain events happening, either executed by users or by other applications, so that it makes your life easier to follow up on completeness, for example, of documents, as I will highlight later on. And then last but not least, the key integrations into your leading applications should be a very high priority, and I will cover this as one of the next steps. So that's just give you a highlight about that. It's more about just managing documents. There's a whole ecosystem around it, which will support and integrate with your enterprise content management. So one item I would like to highlight is the new cloud deployments before we go into more of the available functionality which helps you. But one of the important developments we have seen, especially in the last 1 or 2 years, is the support of cloud. And cloud can mean different things. It can mean where it runs, but also how it's deployed. And you probably have heard of containerization, Kubernetes, and Docker images. And that really was a big change in the industry, the way of how you can more easily deploy more complex kind of environments. So that can be used also not only for the initial installation of your environment, but also for new versions as well. So if you have a Docker script and implement a new development, you can do this also if you just get a version upgrade, and are much more quicker to validate if the version impacts anything of your development, for example. So that really can reduce the time to test and develop or validate any changes. So that makes it easier for customers to be quicker on the latest version and benefit from new functionalities which are provided. Another important aspect is the dynamic scaling, which is now possible. If you see that for some reason there is a higher demand on the system, for example, maybe you have a certain sale of documents, so a certain sale of your products, and there are more users on the system, so you're more able to create new front ends, for example, for a better distribution of the workload, or to also on the back end to help. So that's much easier if you have such kind of these Kubernetes environments to really scale based on your demand, and also downscale if it's not required anymore. The last aspect I would like to highlight here is it run anywhere. So because you are using the same kind of infrastructure where the applications is running on, you have more flexibility to move actually from one deployment to another. At OpenText, we have our own cloud, but we also see that obviously there's a lot of demand for one of the native hyperscalers as well, so cloud, AWS or Azure, or you might have your own Kubernetes environment as well. And so you can easily decide and move also images around, so that gives you much more flexibility to really use the best platform which suits you. One very important aspect which we have seen in the market and with our customers is that having the content in context. So ECM is not an island, and it shouldn't be an island by no means. ECM supports different departments, be it facilities, human resources, legal, procurement, finance, sales, the manufacturing, research and development, and there are probably some we are missing there, which definitely can be added there as well. But it's not about a certain department working with a document management system or an ECM system and put the documents there. It has to be always considered and should be looked at what is also the leading applications these departments are using. Only if these both components really work closely together, then you get the most benefits out of it. And the landscape we have seen getting more and more complex as well, as there are more options available on the market. So if you look in the past, it was just some business applications like SAP, Oracle, or others, which are available on-prem. Then you might have a productivity suite like Microsoft for Office as well. And that was the only connection points which were available. But that obviously has changed dramatically over the last couple of years. So there are all kinds of different solutions available also in the cloud. So what the customers are facing now is that you have some of these applications on-prem, some in the cloud, some move back and forth. And that makes it more difficult for employees to actually know where is the latest version of a document. Is it somewhere on OneDrive? Is it somewhere on the desktop? Is it in my email? Is it attached to an application? There are various ways and various silos which can be created with that kind of environment. So you want to make sure that you have one centralized system which can reach out to different applications regardless of where they are actually located. So what we have seen as an important factor is that you basically create kind of a digital twin to manage your documents. We have something called Workspaces available, so which are, you can say, more advanced folders. So a folder has just a name and a number of documents assigned to it, and maybe some subfolders. But what we have done with the Workspaces, for example, gives you more information, more logical collection of information, users, and data as well. So that gives you more business view on information. It's not browsing some deep hierarchy of documents, but it feels much more natural to look at certain objects and these related documents and information to it. It's also easier to maintain because basically it's driven by your leading application, by your ERP, by your CRM, or by your other applications you might have. So if, for example, you create a new customer, a new vendor, a new material, a new employee, that can be used to automatically trigger an environment automatically by the system to collect all the information which is important for employees. And it also allows you also an easier collaboration as well among different departments, and I come to this in a second. So how can this look like? So you have, for example, a number of folders available for a customer, and they're automatically created. So every employee knows where they can find the information, the latest contract, for example, the latest email of a correspondence happening with a customer vendor, and also maybe the latest images which are required. And you also get the metadata coming from your leading application. So there can be one or several leading applications which are feeding metadata into the system. And that has a big advantage because you don't have to re-enter that information, which might be on the document as well. But because it's synchronized from your leading application, you don't have to enter it manually, and it will be always up to date. So if there's a change, for example, of the address, that's automatically reflected onto the document management system as well. And it will be automatically associated to all the documents which are collected for that object also. And then another important point is that you are able to integrate all the documents you have collected into your leading application as well. So in this case, I have here a screenshot of Salesforce. It could be SAP, Microsoft, Oracle, or any custom application as well. I mean, that's really important and really helpful that the user doesn't have to go out of their application where they have to do transactions, where they are looking up information, where they are changing the master data or transaction data. No, they can just stay in their normal application, but getting the documents delivered right to them as well. And they can be sure that the documents they're seeing here is the same documents they will see if they're going via a browser or via any other UI and looking for the documents, because there's just one place in the organization which is responsible for managing these documents. So that makes it very easy for users because they don't have to learn something new. It's just another tab, for example, here, another button in it, and they will be presented with all the information. And it will look at the authorization as well. So you might see not all the folders because you might not have all the authorization to do so. So you might see just a subset of that information. So that's all be taken care of as well. So that really gives you one version of the truth across your organization. What you can do as well is that you can also link these different objects or workspaces together. So that it's very easy to navigate from one type to another. So you don't have to remember all different folders which might be available, but there's a logical connection between them, which gives you much more flexibility to browse around them. So if you are going a typical sales process, but it could be another process as well, just one of these examples, you create an opportunity. You're collecting some documents and they are linked to a customer which already exists. And then the customer can be either accessed, for example, from Salesforce, but also from SAP. And both users will be able to see the same information, also, which is very powerful, that there are not two versions of the truth, because both applications are connected to the same ECM system. Then maybe there's a project coming out of this opportunity, and then you have collecting all the project documents, and they might be accessible from Microsoft. And then there's certain material which has to be ordered from a certain supplier. There you use Ariba as a system. So very easy for some person navigating from Salesforce to see, okay, what's the customer? What are maybe previous projects we have done? What were lessons learned from this project? What was certain material which we have been used and which was successful? So that's all giving valuable information to users without a lot of learning and a lot of digging around to find that information. And all of these connections will be maintained automatically by the system because SAP, Salesforce, or Microsoft, they know there are these relationships because they are the master of the transactional and the master data as well. So they can very easily connect these for you so that you don't have to maintain these connections manually. I think what we have seen as well is that it's very important for the Microsoft teams to work together so that that you can also access documents from there. So there's not another silo where you look for documents, but you should be able to access documents from the ECM system, also from Microsoft Teams. Mobile access is very important, so that's not only about internal access, but also external access, or from on the go, basically, so that you can browse the documents on your mobile phone, that you can upload pictures as well as you go along if you are on a remote site, and that you maybe see address with integration into Google Maps. So giving you the same or almost the same functionality also on your mobile phone as if you would be working on the desktop. Then there are different departments which should work together as well. So you might have an engineering department which work on documents, and once these documents and drawings are final, they will be moved over to an ERP system for operations. So there should be an easy way to use the same system to either doing the engineering or doing the operations later on. So that if, for example, in the operations, there's a repair or a change required, that you can move back the documents and restart the engineering and do some modifications. But that the handover is pretty smooth and an easy transition there as well. Again, should be done in one environment. Also, systems these days have very nice viewer capabilities, so that, for example, you can easily compare documents, being a text document or drawings like this one, where you can see the difference of changes between two versions of a document. So giving you much more information about what has happened previously and what has changed, and is this the right change which you expected. Then there are more automations available these days. Just picked here an example for HR, so that you might have missing documents defined in the system. So you can, for every object, you can define certain documents which should be available. If not available, you can have reports with reminders, or, for example, allow an employee to have a self-service so that they can upload their own documents and start a process for HR to validate if that's the right document. Collaboration, it's not about collaboration on a document anymore. It's also collaboration on a wiki, for example, that you are managing documents or information also outside of a document, but collecting them in the ECM system. And also an important point for setting up an ECM system is how you make out of incoming documents from different systems actionable items. OCR would be a topic here, so that you can read information and feed it into the right workflow managed by the ECM system and process it in the right application afterwards. Then going forward, syndication of content is also a possibility to have a centralized system, even if you have remote sites with bad connections, being it on chips or other reasons for being remote. But there are now really good ways available to synchronize between a primary site and a remote site, the data and documents, so that also remote sites work on one version of the truth. Another aspect which should be considered is exchanging information with outside users, so that not only the internal users, but also your vendors and customers and other shareholders can access the documents of your ECM system, but in a secure way, maybe with an expiration date as well, so that you don't have to exchange documents via emails, for example, going forward, but you have a way of managing the history and see changes followed by really a check-in, check-out functionality in a secure way. And that obviously broadens the scope there as well, but that helps not to rely on emails going forward. Electronic signature, also an important point, should be part of an ECM consideration as well, so that you are able to have a complete digital process that you're creating a document, you finalize it as a PDF, send it out to a signature, come back as a signed document, validated, and be available in the system as well as a signed version. So that helps a lot with the documents not having a break and print out and rescanning. So very important.
Martin, yes. So you have 1 minute to wrap up, and then because the next speakers here, and also one question will be, but can you make in 1 minute?
Yes, I can. I was just finished anyway. So I just said records management, which is the perfect transition for the next speaker. So that's an important point for this position as well, but it will be the part of the next session. So that was just some highlights on what we have seen as best practices for ECM. I'm happy to take one question if there's one popping up before.
You have time for one. There's a little more, but I will send you later. But the question is, these content management or information management systems like standalone, or I can really connect with my CRMs, ERPs, whatever, some other programs. Is it, and which of them are like most easy to connect?
So what we have seen is there are some of these systems out there like SAP, Oracle, EBS, Microsoft Dynamics, Salesforce SuccessFactors. So these are ones I know of which we have done out-of-the-box integration. So for them, we found it very easy to integrate and have a really connected environment. Very
good, because yes, this is, I think it's very, very good to know for the companies, because there's at least 10 systems different, and how this can help to make it together, not do one more system, one more else. So thank you, Martin. Thank you for your time and a very, very, very interesting presentation. I will get feedback and then send to you, and thank you.